with. She's one of the only people I've met who can truly keep up with me. And like she's smoking fucking dabs and shit. And when I don't smoke dabs because like when I do them I can fucking hoot really crazy huge ones. So people will be like, "You don't smoke concentrates, you're not used to it." And they give me a baby hoot and I'm like, "Yeah, what?" And they're like, okay. I'm like, "Man, give me a fucking like give me a chongus rip. Like, give me the big boy,
Yep, I'm glitching.
Give me like a gram, and I'll fucking pop it." No, a gram's a lot. A gram's crazy.
That seems
That's
like a
a-
lot.
I think the most I did was like a quarter, like a quarter of a gram at one time, and that was
Excessive.
I was talking to the goddesses.
Speaking of the goddesses, I've been playing God of War.
Yeah.
How familiar are y'all with that series?
I know that there's
It's
an
a good
angry
series.
dude named Kratos.
It
Kills
starts
people.
off in Greece, and your main character's a half god, quarter mortal, and quarter titan. And he doesn't know this at first, and like goes through a bunch of shit, becomes a god of war, and then
Well then.
becomes a monster and like kills everybody in the Greek pantheon, and like kills Poseidon and floods the world and kills Helios and uses his head as like a attack. And that blocks out the sun with eternal storms, and then like he basically destroys all of Greece accidentally in his quest for revenge.
Mm.
Yeah.
God of War, roll credits. There it is.
And then well no, that's just the first series. And then after that he ends up in the Greek or out of the Greek pantheon and into the Norse one. And he finds a wife, has a kid, and then turns out that he's involved in the prophecy of Ragnarok because he has a kid who is half giant, half Kratos' weird mix of shit. So he's like part Olympian, part Greek god, or part Olympian Greek god, part Titan, part Jotun, part mortal, but his mortal is actually extremely slim because his mom is a full giant like a Jotun. So it's naturally, guess what? That character's Loki. Yeah, he's Loki. So you end up giving your birth to Loki. He's your son, and you don't realize it. He's responsible for destroying everything, and that's the second game: is the destruction of everything.
You have to kill your kid.
I don't know. I'm not that far.
Damn.
And even if I knew, I wouldn't spoil it like that.
Oh, damn.
Do you kill who though?
I was asking if you killed your own kid.
Oh God, I don't know. I'm pretty sure Kratos would rather die than kill Atreus.
There's a really
Yeah.
thing, I guess, of like
Kratos
media.
Kratos already killed his kid once. He had a daughter named Calliope who he accidentally killed when he was sent to sack a town by Ares, and he didn't know that they were taking refuge in a place that he destroyed, and he killed them. And the reason his skin is stained ash gray is because a prophet cursed him to wear the ashes of his wife and his child forever. So that's why he has the weird gray skin. That's his wife and his daughter's ashes.
Yep.
Ew.
Yep. I love that part. That part was really powerful.
Did you play it, Scott, or did you like watch a playthrough?
I just like watching, like I like learning about like game
Lore.
mythoses. You know, I like plots and stuff. I was just reading
Also,
about Bloodborne.
Oh,
Last
also
night, I
like
was
God of
very
War
excited.
is a good one to become versed in because it's about to become a TV show that's going to be really popular, and they're going to start from like square one. So Scott having an idea of what's going to happen is going to be very beneficial when they watch the show.
Cool. I actually didn't know that they were making a TV show.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. Actually.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I wonder who's gonna play Kratos.
now we're
Not 100.
Vin Diesel.
Oh, I love him.
Who is it?
No, I have no idea.
No.
Rue is just like
Now,
Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel. Like,
Well, I mean, he would be. I mean,
Yeah.
anyone with that body type would be a good choice. Although,
Right?
I would like him to be voiced by the guy who plays Kratos in the game, though, because not in the first series, but like the second series, like the Ragnarok, his deep bassy voice, like it is perfectly Kratos. Like going back and listening to the old ones, he sounds like the 90s. oh, you should be afraid of me. You're like, it's
Yeah.
just like, no, stop it. Whereas this Kratos is just like reserved and quiet, but also like he can fucking he's killed the entire pantheon and like dropped the world into chaos numerous times. He's like low key the worst, but also reformed by the end games. So he actually becomes like the best fucking character because he knows that he's done wrong. Like there's a great quote from him in the second game. There is no making things right, only better than they were.
Hmm.
Oh, you know.
Like that.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking
So,
of
yeah,
shows,
it's
anybody gonna watch Wednesday on
nope.
Wednesday?
Oh, Wednesday. Oh, right. There's like a Wednesday Addams show coming out or something, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
on Netflix. It looks really good.
It did
And like
actually
I
look
love
kind
the
of good. I
whole
saw the
like
previews for it.
yeah, I like that. That looks fun. I'm like so anxiously waiting for it.
I started like
Yeah,
there's
I
actually
was.
a lot of media I've been consuming that's been very like magically sort of because
Mhm.
like that's something that I'm wanting to get back into doing is like more fiction and consuming media because that's where a lot of my inspiration for a lot of like spell ideas and stuff comes from.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like I could flip through a whole D&D like spell book and I'll be like, well, I'll just make that spell for real. So,
Right.
but I've been reading this book, the Six Gun Tarot. I finally started reading this book that I picked up.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a western. So it's set. Uh, my voice is picking up.
I know. I'm like, why? How the hell
I
are
don't
you
talk
loud
that
enough?
loud.
Maybe
don't
set
think I'm
on your
talking loud.
your noise threshold or something, and change your gate or your There's
I
another
think it's
setting I
fine
can't
now.
ever remember the
I think
name
we're
of.
good now.
Noise
Yeah.
suppression. That's the other one.
But yeah. So the Six Gun Tarot. That's the book. So it's a western. It's set post Civil War. So it's like the time of the railroad. Like when the railroad was being built
Mhm.
out west in America, and it does touch on like the displacement of like the native tribes that were out
Indigenous
there.
people.
And it does what's interesting, it's centered around a town founded by Mormons, which is pretty interesting. And what the hell was the other fucking thing? Right. So this book is like crazy because it's like on one hand it's this story of this kid and he's traveling and he has this mysterious jade eye, little jade prosthetic eye, and there's like a whole story, right? That's kind of like unraveling. And like so like the first couple chapters start off as that, and then like the next chapter that I started reading, it was like the beginning of time, and it was the
Mm.
archangels in heaven fighting the voidlings so God could
I have to
create
pick up my
heaven
headset real quick.
and create earth and like all of this crazy shit. I was like, this book is wild. So it's been a wild trip. I'm almost done it. I'm very
What kind of eye does he have?
it's
Did you say?
jade. It's a
Jade,
jade
okay.
eye.
I was
Like
wondering if it would be like emerald, only because the emerald tablets and that whole mythology.
oh yeah, so like what
Have
it
you ever heard
is
of that?
this is it's like these people are trying to resurrect this thing like the great worm or the demiurge is what they're kind of calling it,
Ooh,
and they're trying to like bring out the great worm and the demiurge to cleanse the earth, and kill everybody basically.
that's really
Yeah, it's
cool.
really fucking dark and just weird, and with that like background of like the Wild West, like that kind of
West, yeah.
concept,
Well,
it's like
yeah.
they govern
There's
themselves.
the genre name generally is the Weird West. That's
Mm-hmm.
one of them. There's other names. There's Dark Western.
Yeah, I
I
guess it'd
love
be
that
like,
vibe. I love
yeah,
that vibe. It's weird.
and it's
The
weird because like
dark shit really fits that environment for some
it
reason. Like occult,
does.
vampires, all that stuff seems to just really work
Mm-hmm.
with cowboys, or whatever.
I think it's because it was a time of like such change, like so many things were changing. Like the world
Hmm.
itself was changing so rapidly. Um,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, it's been a really wild ride. I've also been watching Merlin. That's been fun too. It's
The
an
the
older
BBC
show.
show.
It's an older show. I think it was on. I think it's BBC. Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
BBC show.
I love that show. I've watched.
Mm-hmm.
I still like. I've watched the whole show like at least twice.
Mm.
I followed it like when it first came out. Like I was watching it weekly. No, I watched it. I definitely watched it all the way through, more than that.
It's not still
And I like
aired
every
though,
once in a
right?
while, it's like a feel good show.
Yeah.
Like I'll watch a few episodes, like when I need to like feel comforted, you know.
Mm-hmm. I like
Gaius
the
is
show.
like
Like,
everyone.
oh yeah, Gaius is
What are we
everything.
talking about?
There's a BBC show called Merlin, and it's about Merlin as a young
Mhm.
guy doing Merlin
Nice.
things. But it's interesting. Like the pattern of the show is kind of funny because it's like a problem arises in the kingdom. Well, magic is banned in Camelot, right? So it's like a problem arises in the kingdom. Well, clearly it's caused by magic, but Uther doesn't want to hear about that. King Uther doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, because
King
I mean, like,
Uther doesn't
And
fucking
then
give a shit.
Merlin's like, obvi, it's magic. Let us solve the problem with magic. And then Gaius is like, no. But then he'll be like, Merlin, you must save the world. You have to save Camelot with magic. He's very mixed signals. I feel bad for Merlin, honestly. Gaius just gives him nothing but mixed signals.
I mean,
Use
I
magic,
feel
don't
like
use
Gaius
magic.
is just. I think Gaius more says like, be really careful and don't let people know that you're using magic.
Right. I loved
Also,
the
can we talk about that spell book and
the
how
spell
pretty it is?
book. I loved the making of Excalibur. I enjoyed that.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm assuming that sword is Excalibur. They haven't specifically said it, but it's a magic sword
Is it made
with
from the metal of a
dragon's breath.
fallen star?
It was a sword that a dragon breathed like magic fire on.
Well,
In
that's
this-
bullshit.
In this retelling of the Merlin story.
Excalibur was made from the fucking metal of a fallen star. That's the story of it. Just saying.
It was very interesting because in that particular scene, it really made me think about like constructing charms and stuff like that. Because the dragon says, basically what it was is Merlin needed a weapon to give to Arthur to kill something that was undead. So he goes to the dragon. The dragon says, "Yes, I'll make you this sword. I'll make you this magic sword, but only Arthur can wield it. If anyone else wields the sword, it will be very bad." So, of course, push comes to shove. Uther is the one who ends up wielding the sword in the fight.
Oof.
Yeah. And basically it
You
gets
have
back
one
to the
job.
Right, exactly. And it gets back to the dragon, and the dragon's really pissed at Merlin. He's like, "This was made from the old magic. I told you, like, this is meant for Arthur, so you need to get this sword, like, the fuck away from Uther. Like, send it where no mortal man can find it," is what the dragon said. And so Merlin chucks it in the middle of the lake. And, like, it was funny as I was watching it, because I was like, me in my modern day mindset, I was like, scuba, like scuba gear, like, okay, you chuck a sword in the middle of the lake, I'll still find it, But I was like, but I guess
Right.
it makes sense for that time period, like, well, yeah, if I chuck it in the middle of the lake, who the hell's gonna ever find it again? It always
Now
just makes me
I
giggle.
can't remember the story. So how does it get from the lake to the stone?
Lady in the lake.
I feel like I'm missing an essential step here.
The show Merlin, I mean, it takes all the Merlin mythos and tales and really kind of spins it around. So, like, I don't know how the show's gonna do that, but
Yeah.
Most TV shows do that because if you this is also, in my opinion, a very flawed train of logic. But a lot of people seem to think that if you retell a story that's already been told and you keep all the story beats the same, it's going to be boring and it's going to be like you already know what's going to happen, right? Like this is why when they did the Final Fantasy VII remake, they changed the story. Sorry, spoilers, but I'm not telling you what they changed it to, but it's not like a perfect remake. It's like a whole new iteration, right? And I feel like a big problem that Hollywood producers run into is when they're reinventing the wheel. They shouldn't be, to put it simply put. Because like, when you take a lot of beloved stories and you change the beats about them, right? It's not the same story. It's something else.
right.
So I don't know. I personally like it when they keep shit authentic to the source material.
Yeah,
And
but I
don't
guess in the
bugger it
case
up.
of Merlin, I mean, it's like how accurate, like,
Can you
we
be
don't
to
know for
something
sure
that's
how accurate what we have is. You know what I mean? Because these stories are so old and have been retold. You know, but
Yep, the Arthurian legend is ancient Welsh.
mm-hmm. What was the? I also was listening to this podcast, Celtic Myths and Legends. It's this girl, she's like in her master's program or something like that, and so she's like, oh, I'm just like in like she studies Arthurian legends and stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say yeah.
and so she's making this podcast, and she's like going through like the stories of like the Mabinogion and like all these
Oh.
like really cool legends, because I would love to read them myself, but I don't have time. I have tons of books I still have to get through, so I'm like, well, if I
yeah.
listen to this podcast, they can kind of like summarize these legends, and I can get like enough of the gist to really
Mhm.
appreciate them.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, don't mind me. I'm just getting dressed and putting on decent clothes. So y'all don't get a crotch shot or something accidental at some point. Just saying.
Bro, the camera thing's killing me. I can't stop looking at it.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna turn
Welcome
out.
to Cyberpunk.
Killing me.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, I don't think other people
I
would
didn't even
appreciate it
realize.
either. What have
All
you been
right,
up
peak
to,
faggot
Scott?
outfit. Right.
Nice.
That.
Nice.
And I'm gonna layer on my motorcycle jacket. And fuck you, bad crew gift.
Huh?
They gave us a shitty crew gift.
Oh.
I'm not gonna go into details. Might violate NDA. I don't know. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna go on the air and bitch about my crew gift. But a lot of us were unimpressed.
I have to go to a fucking work event soon. Not happy about
Is
it.
it for the holidays?
Like, not specifically for the holidays. It's like a team building, because we all work remote, right? So it's and like the CEO of our company, I want everyone to get together at least quarterly and see each other because it's gonna help morale. It's like, no, fucking not.
No, it's gonna help your ego, bitch.
We
It's gonna
all
help
work
your little
here
fucking.
for a paycheck.
Ego.
That's it. We all work here for a paycheck. That's all. We're gonna do an
Bosses do
escape
that.
room. Yay.
Bosses do that shit because it's like their ego. Like they can see the people that they boss around. They feel good about their position and what they're doing. They're like, yeah, why should hold meetings? When it's like been proven that like having meetings can actually be inefficient as fuck.
Funny thinking of bosses and inefficiency. It just makes me think of the whole Elon Twitter debacle that's going on right now.
Something, is kind of off about that. Like, it really feels like somebody paid him to scuttle the website,
Yeah. That's a theory. I like that theory, actually. Yeah, it's just
I've heard several
the
people mention
people
it.
on Twitter are actually bothering me more than Elon himself. Because it's like,
Why?
it's like, okay, so it's not like Twitter was run by the greatest of people to begin with. The point of Twitter was to make money. That's the point, right?
Point of everything in capitalism.
Exactly. So Twitter was just run by people who want to make money, and they're trying to capitalize on every second of your attention. Okay, fine.
Mhm.
Twitter was a toxic garbage shithole before Elon bought it. Like, it was
True.
terrible. It was awful. And all these people on Twitter are just like, oh, Twitter's, like, this is my place of refuge, my place of sanctuary. Like, I
can understand how it could be for some people.
I do see that. I can understand that, but at the same time, I'm like, it's a fucking website. Like, get over it. Like, I don't know. It's really driving me crazy. It's really driving me crazy. Like, I've dealt with not being on MySpace and phasing out Facebook, and Instagram is utterly fucking useless. It's just pictures. And
I hear
honestly,
you.
I kind of went back to Tumblr. I kind of started checking out Tumblr again.
A lot of people are going back, and I kind of
Yeah.
want to go back too. I kind of miss Tumblr.
Do it. I've been browsing the
Um,
Witchblur community. It's really toned down, and it seems like people have grown up a bit. So
Really?
What I
it's
was
refreshing.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, and we have a
The one
Witches
thing I
Betwixt
was-
Tumblr, so
Sorry, go ahead.
no, sorry, go ahead, Sophia.
The one thing I was reading that the community impacted most by the loss of Twitter is actually people with disabilities, because to them, virtual spaces are the majority of a lot of spaces that they get to go and socialize and interact and have discourse in. So for disabled people particularly, it's been a big hard hit, and I can completely understand that, you know?
Yeah, it's just like it's hard for me to reconcile because Twitter is a steaming pile of garbage and it always has been.
Mm-hmm.
And Elon's just making it worse, obviously. And so like if anything, it's just making me real it just kind of reiterates my thought process of like with the way things are with the way society is moving and shaking right now. It seems like we need to kind of go a little bit more tribal in the sense of like stick to your groups, make sure your immediate circles are okay. You know what I mean? Like
I don't know.
kind of like Byron's idea of like circles on the ground. Like you got to make sure you and your crew are
Mm.
safe and healthy first, and then you can start to push out forward and start to
Yeah.
Well, I
like
mean,
do that
you
kind of
can't
work.
help somebody else swim when you're drowning yourself,
Right.
obviously.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
But I just see a lot of people on
also at the
Twitter. They're
same
just like, "Oh, we're just gonna sit around. So this is what we're doing now, and we're just sitting around here until it all just burns down." I'm like, "Go outside? I don't know. Open a window? Like, I don't know. Chronically Online. I've been decreasing the amount that I interact with social media, like drastically as time goes on. I don't even want to look at it.
Yeah, it's social media has been kind of, I don't know, weird. I mean, it's always been weird, but
Yeah.
it's definitely has a, I don't know. But then again, you want to know something though? I keep talking to my roommate Christian about this. When I go outside now, like because I'm in school, I don't know if everyone knows. I don't know if I talked about it on the podcast yet. Probably did.
Mhm.
Um, but I know I've talked about like this sort of like distrust that I feel about everyone around me now.
Mm,
The weird thing is that I'm starting to realize that it's everyone too. Like it's not just like this me feeling. Like when I'm on
correct.
the subway, everything has an edge to it.
Yes.
Everyone is like huddled into themselves, and everyone is like, there's not really much room for smiles. There's not much room
Mm-hmm.
for pleasant, like even like just polite, how you smile at the person you're sitting next to or whatever, across from.
Well, yeah,
Like
you do that
none of
now,
that's
and
happening. Everyone is just kind of like, and then even when I'm on campus,
mm,
everyone is just trying to get to the next building. Like when I was there, even in like 2016, like people were like hanging out. And I mean, one could argue, well, it's getting cold, but I started, early fall, like I
right.
started in September, and it still had this strange edge. Like campus isn't as social as it used to be. Like CCP campus was always very social, and like there was always
Lots of
something going
clubs,
on.
student activities.
Yeah, and like even I remember even on Spirit Day, like there were people and they were like they were there, but like how things like seem to be painted with like a vibe. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like people were sort of, I don't know, like there's just this edge everywhere
Mm,
outside, and it's just like, and Christian was saying how like even when he's coming home from work at night, he's like, he's like, I just focus on walking in the door. He's like, I hate that I have to walk from my, or move commute to
mm-hmm.
home from work. He's like, I just want to be in the door. No one feels safe. Everyone is uncomfortable, and I don't know, and it's a shame, and I'm not saying I have any I don't know that there is any remedy for that, but it is unfortunate. It is really sad because even I feel that edge. Even I feel like I don't, and it's not like me like wanting to hibernate. It's just like I don't want to be outside because I don't feel safe.
Mm,
Nothing
As a
feels safe.
I just do have to point out, as the only person not living in Philly, that might be an America slash Philly thing too. Because
yeah,
I
it
don't
is possible.
necessarily pick up those vibes nearly as much. And I mean, America is kind of like fucking going through it right now. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, a couple weeks ago, somebody like broke into the Pelosi's house and like held her husband hostage and wanted to
Right.
kill her. And like, shit's pretty tense. And there's a lot of like background radiation in America right now with like people talking, like even Wisecrack, like the YouTube channel did an article that was is civil war inevitable? Question mark. So like, not saying that it is going to happen, because like that was one of the things they said in the video, talking about it like it's an inevitability makes it more of an inevitability. But also at the same time, like, America is more polarized than it's been in a hot minute, and a lot of that has to do with like what's happened with Trump and like the
Oh, yeah.
Republican Party fucking going full tilt fascists, and authoritarians. And I do think that in America, there's like, also especially in American schools, you know how many fucking schools have shootings in them? Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen here. That just doesn't fucking happen here, right? So I would imagine that going to school in America is a uniquely stressful experience, right?
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
are finding
it-
that students are
not wanting to go.
distinctly more anxious and less focused. Grade point averages are decreasing in high schools. Mostly, a lot of professionals believe it's because of the anticipated or the generalized anxiety of the fear of what could come to be an active shooter.
Yep.
Um,
But I'm sure a
and
lot of
other,
it's
of
being
course,
blamed
like
on hybrid learning.
what was that, Jay? I'm so sorry.
I was saying I'm sure a lot of it's being like all the declining grades and the anxiety and stuff of kids. I'm sure that there is a group of people that are blaming it strongly on the remote hybrid learning that had to happen because of the pandemic and
Well, we
stuff
all
like
know who
that.
those people are. We won't say it though.
Right.
But yeah, yeah. Speaking of, and I don't want to be a mood killer, but as we are a queer witchcraft podcast, I
Mm.
think it's it would be bad of me, or whatever, to not. Unfortunately, I think it was last night in Colorado.
I was
There was
just gonna
another
say.
shooting in a gay nightclub. Unfortunately,
Yep.
5 of our 10 have passed on, and 18 are injured.
Another pulse, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you know how? All right, we live in Philly, and Philly is a particularly liberal city. Okay, I don't, being a queer person in Philly is not as scary as being a queer person in other places. However,
For sure.
Rue and I were at the diner yesterday morning getting some breakfast. Local diner we have been to a bazillion times, and it wasn't like awful, the experience, but it was very unsettling. So our waitress, she was talking to us, whatever. Like, we're watching some clip from Parks and Rec on our phone, and she was talking to us, and she's like, "Oh my god, have you ever watched like Dave Chappelle, like special or comedy special?" And I'm like, "Oh, fucking god." It's like Dave Chappelle, he's a fucking ass. Like, he just says a bunch of. It's just not a great person, right? I understand that comedy can be offensive, and offensive things can be funny, but in terms of Dave Chappelle, I don't find him all that fucking funny. I think he's a piece of shit. But anyway, so she's like, "Oh, you gotta watch this," and she immediately was just like, "Well, listen, like if you're gonna get your feelings hurt about like like LGBT and like trans stuff, then don't watch it."
Yikes.
And I was just like, I hate that we pass as a cishet couple. I hate it so much. Because I
Yeah,
didn't know
I
it.
feel
We
that.
kind of just like laughed. We were like, "Oh yeah, haha," like kind of like laughed her off, kind of thing. But I'm like, and then you hear the two waitresses like talking, back behind like like their area, and they were just talking, and they were like, "Oh yeah, like I just like I just don't understand LGBT. I just don't get it." I'm like, "There's nothing to fucking get. What is there to get? What is there to understand? It doesn't affect you one iota. No one wants to fuck you, yo. Like, shut up."
Another point to make about that as well is that you don't have to. Like,
Right.
you don't
It's not for you.
you don't have to understand. Like, that's like, and that this can fit into many things, but
Yes.
you don't have to just because you don't understand something doesn't mean that you can, I don't know, be a dick about it. To put it simply.
Correct.
And I like
Exactly.
what you said, Sophia, about it's not for you. Right. You're not You don't fit into whatever that thing is, so therefore just shut up, you know?
Right.
It's really
And
that easy.
it just made me really frustrated when we were at the diner because I was like, man, this is like the only good diner in this area. I'm like I don't think it'll stop me from going back because like she wasn't being like overtly offensive and like I understand what she was saying. So like in a way she was warning us that like, hey, if you're sensitive to those kinds of things, maybe don't watch Dave Chappelle. Fair. Okay. Fine. But like the way it was delivered and just the assumption. It was the assumption. How do you know that we're not queer? You know what I mean? Like how do you like she assumed that we are not queer,
I see,
you
I wish
know?
I could agree with that. I would see, for me it would come off, whether she meant it like it or not, it would sound threatening in a way,
It
or
just
at least like
sounded
you're
yeah,
not welcome here, you
kind
know?
of. Yeah.
And that part would stop me. But I don't know, like I think that comes from my experience being a masculine presenting person.
Mm,
Because like the thought that comes up is my experience with barbershops.
mm-hmm.
Um, as a masculine presenting person, and that's like a whole thing.
Right, I
Mhm.
can only imagine.
You know, like it's a man's world in a barbershop. You know what I mean? Like there's this one barbershop that like I think it looks nice, but like I'm always so scared because all the men in there, it's all male barbers. There's no like female presence. Definitely no queer presence.
Nothing to balance
And
it out.
they're young, but
Mm,
they're all South Philly young.
right.
They're all like, socks and Adidas flip flops in the summer kind of thing.
And whatever sports team talk.
That.
Yeah.
And like I'm just like, the second one of you bitches clock my femininity, you're going to make a point of it because it's going to make you uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to feel insecure or you're going to get a boner and you're not going to like the fact that you got a boner. And like, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
have to be the brunt of that insecurity and that pain for you. And I don't want to deal with that. And I know that like everyone could be like, well, that's speculation. Yeah, but it's lived experience
Exactly.
too. You know what I mean? Like, so like yeah, I'm a little cautious, but I think I don't know. Maybe that's kind of what we were talking about previously about how we feel about, at least as Sophia said, in America, why things feel so edgy.
Yep. Or
Well,
Maybe
just
that's kind of
we have our
dangerous.
passports now, so we'll do a visit to Canada. We'll see how we feel, and then we'll compare the two.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll fucking find it a lot more cheery up here. Like, we actively smile at each other and shit, and say hi and hold doors and stuff.
We used to.
I hear it's a very different attitude shift from coming across the line.
We
Just
used to
saying.
do that.
Yeah.
With Philly, I mean, that's the one thing. What did I hear? Philly is, we're not nice, but we're friendly.
Yeah.
That's what people say.
No, no,
Um,
no. It's we're
or
not nice, but we're friendly.
that. Perfect. I love that. Yes. And and like we used to, like it used to be kind of customary to like, especially in South Philly, like it was a thing
Mm-hmm.
here. I was so used to it,
Well, yeah,
you
because
know?
there's that like strong like Italian like presence down there of that like
Used to be.
used to be, yeah, but gentrification has kind of
It's
changed that.
pushed, yeah, it it kind of, well, yeah. I mean, really, South Philly, not that I mind. I personally don't mind, although of course some people do.
Mm.
But it's South Philly has become the safe haven for the poor.
Mm.
Mhm.
And it's the tactic, but that's how gentrification works. Like if you look at gentrification on a map, you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of see what they're doing.
Yeah, they're
You can
pushing
actually
everyone out of
see.
Kensington and pushing them up
Yeah, you
north and
start
south.
pushing. Yeah, you can see how they start pushing people in different directions. It's
Mhm.
disturbing, but it's
Mm-hmm.
true.
Like our
Um,
neighborhood has declined. Like we've been living here for 5 years, something like that. Um, Our neighborhood has
Mhm.
declined significantly. There is so much fucking trash on my block. I never remember there being this much garbage. Like, I walk out of my house and there's just garbage everywhere.
I've always said that like I wish that there was a way to have like all the perks of gentrification, like the beautiful neighborhoods, and like still be able to keep people from being displaced.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wish, like
I think it
I
comes down
hate.
to, I think people need to care more about their space that they live in. Because it's like all this trash, right? So is in front of each individual person's house, and no one is picking up the trash in front of their house. So like I was picking up the trash in front of my house, but then I noticed that there was just still more trash everywhere else in front of everyone else's house. So one day, it was actually maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, something like that. I went out. It was when I had my week off, so whatever the end, it was the end of October leading into the first week of November, as I had a week off. And so on one of those days, I went outside with a little claw grabber thing and a trash bag, and I cleaned up all the trash on the fucking block. We have a tiny block. I'll give it that. It's like half of what an actual city block is, but whatever. So I cleaned up all the trash on the
Yeah.
block. It was a full fucking bag of trash. The next day, tons of trash.
People
Now,
just dump it.
even more. They just throw it. They just dump it. Like, even after, and it's even our own sanitation department doesn't care either, because when they pick up the trash,
Yeah.
whatever doesn't make it into the it just stays all over the street. Whatever doesn't make it into the truck.
But the thing is that like the thing with that is though, and that, like this is my critique, I guess, of that is that they care in certain neighborhoods and they don't
Correct.
care in others,
Right. The
and
shittier the
that's
neighborhood,
like
the less they care.
right, and that's the things that's what I'm kind of talking about. Like as
Mm-hmm.
far as sanitation is concerned, like sanitation department is concerned,
Mm-hmm.
um, there shouldn't be a reason why like Old City is spotless
Right.
and South Philly, I just use that as like, whatever because I
Right.
live here. But like there shouldn't be a reason why they look different. The city is
Where
the
one's
city.
spotless and one's a dumpster.
Right.
Mhm.
It's not fair.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I remember this is very many moons ago. I think I was 22
Mm.
and I was visiting a friend for adult fun time that I met on an
Ooh.
app and and I had to go like I don't even know where the hell I went in like further down from my house. I was in some neighborhood and it was filthier than anything I live near, and I mean I
Mm.
felt bad. I wasn't judging anyone,
Right.
but when I tell you it was filthy, I mean like not just trash, not just like fast food wrappers, that kind of thing.
Mm.
Dead rats,
Mm.
used syringes,
Mm.
like and I was just like and
Wow.
you know it was a shame, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the people that, like on this particular block, it was a lot of like college students who couldn't afford,
Right.
you know what I mean? And yeah, I don't know. It's just yeah, I don't really even. You know what the worst part is that like I have this overwhelm with all of this stuff that's going on. You don't really know how to talk about it anymore,
Right,
which is
because it
weird.
just keeps happening and it's not getting better. It's kind of just getting worse. I mean, and like again, we are speaking from well, the 3 out of 4 of us are speaking from a Philadelphia American specific lens. But um I don't know. It's not great and it's not helping anyone's mental health. But the other thing too is like why aren't I wish like we could get our own people to care. Like pick up the trash in front of your house. Like it is the sanitation's department's job to, yes, put the trash that you put out for pickup, that they are supposed to put it into the truck and take it to the dump. That's their job, okay? But also, like, during, like, on the other days of not trash pickup, your job as the owner or the tenant of the place that you're living in is to clean the fuck up. Like, if everyone just cleaned up the trash in front of their house, we'd be fine.
My mom and like my next door neighbor and another one of our neighbors, Anna, who's like 3 doors down, and a few other people here and there. We clean up like sort of each other's, like, the
Mhm.
connected house. Like, we'll clean up that,
Mhm.
but like no one really, I mean, I think that's another problem too, is that no one really has the time, to like also, or at least no one feels they have the time.
Right.
And I
Or
mean, I
they view it
understand
as
that.
a
Like,
waste of time. They're like, why am I going to take this time that I have for myself and clean up
right.
trash when it's not my trash? Like,
And I will say that, like, I understand where they're coming from, technically speaking,
mhm.
like, because I personally do believe that the city should handle it. Personally, I think
But
you
they're
can pay your
incapable.
sanitation workers well, and they can take care of it. But I understand where people are coming from. Like, for my mom, I can only talk to my mom. I mean, I could go out there too, and I have. I've swept up the leaves and stuff this fall. Just because, I know, like, leave your leaves if you live rurally or
If you have
suburban.
grass.
Your leaves will just, whatever. But living in the city, it's just concrete and like asphalt, so like it
Yeah.
just makes everything really slippery.
It makes
I've
it a
busted
bitch
my
when it
ass many a time.
snows. Because then you're
Well,
shoveling snow plus 10 pounds of dead wet leaves
right,
underneath of it.
right. Which I've done that before.
Yep, and it sucks.
And yeah, so I've swept the leaves in front of my house and like my neighbor's house. But I don't know, like, it's like you feel like you don't really have time. You're so worried about your life and
Mhm.
work and stress and school and
Mhm.
you know socializing and whatever your
Fighting and
responsibilities.
fucking and farting.
Exactly.
All that.
Farting, I've been doing
Literally
all
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 that.
that.
My god, I'm so gassy.
So I wanted to I mean, and this is not meant to bring down the mood at all. I'm not
No.
upset or whatever, but I've been having a really interesting conversation with myself.
Oh.
The irony as to what I'm about to say about that, but it's not what I mean. So I recently got a diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder
Yeah, I saw
from my
your
Yes.
therapist.
Facebook
Wow.
I saw your Facebook post about that.
Yeah. It was at first not easy to sit with,
I can
but
Yeah.
imagine,
I
yeah.
realized why. And it was because, and the shame, I sat with why I was feeling shame about that because, I was like, I used to, not that I thought it was a possibility because I didn't think what I was experiencing was that severe, but on the, like on the spectrum that is DID, it isn't as severe as other people, but I
Mhm.
do have it. And, I realized that the shame was actually coming from a place of how do I put this? From that side of me that is interested in mysticism and witchcraft. It was
Mm.
from the part of my
Mhm.
identity that is witch. And I was
Hmm.
like, how do I reconcile? And I don't know why it went there. Like my mind literally, like, when I got the diagnosis and without even me really realizing it, I had no active sort of I didn't actively think about that to the
Mm.
forefront of my mind, but that's where
Mhm.
I went internally. Was like, is my witchcraft even valid? Are
Mm.
my are my experiences valid anymore?
Yeah.
And it was actually thanks to Fish and
I
their
was gonna say
experiences with mental
fish.
illness and other practitioners as well. Um, who I know have different mental illnesses and whatnot, experiences with mental health. And it was actually kind of, thankfully it was like 2 days of feeling this like, what do I do with this? And all of a sudden it kind of I realized that it's in those moments of deep calm when me and my two alters, still really weird to say it. I only called them that for the first time this past Friday in therapy. Um and it's when we're like in moments of oneness where I get my most clarity, and I actually found like a peace in that.
Hmm.
I found like it was like this really nice sort of like, so that's what happens when I work really hard to bring the three of us together as one, as we're supposed to be.
Isn't that kind of like a
Um,
thing in the occult anyway? Like the three selves, like the three parts
it's
of you?
interesting, and that's another thing. Which Darian, I'm glad you mentioned that because I would have forgotten. Darian also mentioned Darian really loves the idea of the three cauldrons
Hmm.
from the 15th century bard whose name I cannot remember at the moment. And he really loves like the three cauldrons model. And me and him were talking about the soul and Incometicism and European witchcraft and mysticism and how we see the soul, how many layers the soul has in each tradition.
Mhm.
And we were
I've
discussing that,
heard
and he
4
was,
as well.
what was that? I'm so sorry.
I've heard 4 is a number for layers of the soul in several different cultures. So I think it varies, but
It does.
often I've heard it land on either 3 or 4.
It,
Those two seem to be the most consistent numbers for that.
yep. And definitely in Europe, yeah, those numbers are pretty. Yeah, that would
Oh,
be about right.
even beyond Europe, far
Oh, really?
beyond Europe. Yeah,
I
like
know.
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead. I'm interested.
I was just gonna say, like, for example, I'm relevant recent example. I'm playing God of War Ragnarok, and they are very, very true to the mythology, and in it, a character dies. I'm not gonna say who, and they're actually quite minor anyways, so it wouldn't be a spoiler. And one of the characters is curious as to what happens to a soul when they die, and Mimir explains that the soul has 4 parts. I can't remember what they called
Oh,
them in the Norse, but one of them was your luck. And I found that
yeah.
really interesting. Your luck is like a part of your soul, right? So there's like your luck, your body, I don't know. And I've heard in like North American indigenous stuff, the mind, body, heart, spirit model. So I
Ooh,
think that it's not just in Europe specifically, but beyond that, people do have layers of the soul
oh,
cooked into
I
their
just meant the
beliefs.
number. Oh, they totally. I
Yeah.
mean, what you call it? Like I know, because we were discussing Cometicism, which has, I
Mm.
believe, Darian said 7. Could be more.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
and I was gonna say I know there's layers of the soul in Kabbalah as well.
Yep. Yep.
And it's like the Oresh, the Adam Katman. Oh God, I'm trying really hard. I used to have this in notes in a book that I burned. But I think they have like 3 layers of the soul. Although if Hava was here, they would correct me and actually have a proper answer for that.
Right.
But yeah, so pretty much every culture that I know about talks about like having layers of the
Layers.
souls and multiple
Yep.
bodies incorporated into one, right? Which is why I can see that you would maybe feel that juxtaposition of feeling like you have positive results from your craft, but then also being told that it's a mental health thing too, from like a Western medical standpoint, right? And I was gonna say you should definitely talk to Fish about it, but you already said that you took into consideration a lot of what Fish has said in your chats with
Yeah.
her.
I think, it's funny because I think, I mean, it's certainly it definitely is debilitating, right? Like, I mean, if you just look at, me at points in my life and whatever. But I will also say, what really helped was that, like I said, I found peace in sort of those moments of clarity when we're together, or at least working together. And I also, um, what was I about to say? I apologize. I lost my train of thought. Um, oh, I had another point and I totally forgot it.
That's okay.
Oh.
We can revisit it if you remember during this.
Hmm.
Hopefully something.
But
It's
I
kind.
guess the point of me bringing this up
Mm.
was, how do y'all move through your experiences of mental health and mysticism? And do they like, where do they relate? Where do they not relate? Where is it a hindrance and where is it not?
Well, I think it always depends on what your mental health is in question versus your practice in question as well, right? So like I've navigated several different mental health issues in my life, including post-traumatic stress disorder, the complex variant, autism, some degree of ADHD, I'm certain of it, and also an interesting one. I was diagnosed with situational depression, which is when you have depression by effects of like a bunch of things in your life being awful and not having like supports and like being stuck in a really shitty place. Like that can just straight up make a person depressed, right? But when I'm not stuck in those spots, I'm not just like, oh, life sucks. Like I've just been so fucking over the moon about how good shit's been like these past few months. Like, and it's not just like a manic state or anything. It's not like going, it's just like a general release of anxiety and just like feeling good as like an overall, not like, wow, everything's amazing because it's like manic, but it's just like a low level good constantly. You know what I mean? And it feels like really balanced to be in that state. But it's always a part of like getting there, right? And how your mental health works also correlates to your craft, right? So for me, a lot of my work at one point was like battling my depression, right? And struggling with accepting myself as a trans woman and like doing the things that I wanted to do with my life, like move out of my hometown and like do witchcraft and like so many things. And I always had myself to overcome and limitations that I was putting on myself to kind of like out of a, like self-reinforcing depressive behavior, right? So to me, my magic always had to do with confrontation of the self, shadow work, and unfolding my deepest layers, right? It's been a while since I really had to dive headlong into it because I don't have a lot of knots to untie. And it's weird because I'm in that like middle state of the pendulum where it's like a false feeling of stagnation, but you're actually making progress because like I'm actually healing in the state that I'm in, because healing isn't done through like always big dramatic fucking cathartic moments. Healing can
Sometimes
be
it's just
done
time.
through like a time of things going good and not really being too tumultuous, and you getting to settle into some rhythm and norm and allowing yourself to develop yourself in all the ways that you never got to have the time to look at when you get out of just survival mode and you actually get into like becoming a professional or something, or like thriving, you know? Like it's a whole different model of understanding and experiencing yourself. So now I'm building towards like mastery of my craft, which is like film work. So like I want to set up a ready room in my house, which has like all of my gear, all of my tools, like a workbench with like a vise so I can clamp down stuff and repair it, like leather riveting things so like when a belt breaks I can repair it, like everything I've fucking set up to need to like do my work and be ready to work in film, right? Because you need a lot of equipment to do that. No matter what your department is, you need to be prepared, and it takes time and space, right? So being able to set up something like that to professionally master a craft is something I couldn't even have thought about doing while in survival mode, right? And honestly, Scott, if I were in your shoes, my journey would then become to reunite my I wouldn't say wayward because I don't want to put my words on your experience, but like if I have that separation of myself into multiple beings like that, and it feels most whole and complete and blissful when we're united as one, then I would be seeking the merging of those into one defined true state of self, right? And also understanding that they are like aspects of the greater you, you know? At least that's my interpretation of where I would go on a journey with that, right? So I know somebody who had DID, and then through the help of therapy and seeing like trained therapists, integrated all their selves into one, and now they're just them, you know? So it depends. And some people also don't necessarily get to that state, and they learn to live with it in like a healthy equilibrium, and that's like what they need to for them. Yeah, and because everybody's got their own needs with their own mental health, right? Like some people aren't ever going to break out of depression and what's important for them is finding a way to deal with it. And maybe that's medication, maybe that's learning to live their life in a very specific way, right? And maybe
Right.
some
Yep.
people don't get to deal with it, and that's okay too, because that's part of the struggle with mental health, right? We
Mm.
kind of have to create space for all the narratives out there, and not all of them are like this sanitized narrative of overcoming what you've been through and getting to a spot of healing where you can be the model survivor of mental health, right? And that
Right.
reformed person, right? Because it's kind of
Mm.
like a myth, because anybody who goes through that shit still has the scars of it. And it still defines like a piece of your personality that you've
Of
been through
course.
that, right? No matter
Yeah.
what your end state is. So I think ultimately it's a journey of finding what you want to be reasonably with what you have available to you and working to get to your most satisfied state of being, you know.
Mm.
Does that make
Absolutely.
sense?
No, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yes. These are things that
Cool.
I've also thought about. Like I said, I realized that there is a desire amongst the other two, and
Hmm.
myself, that we all three of us recognize that we want to be together, and at times it's easier to see us as one, and other times it's not. And it's interesting because of the way the way my psyche fractured. It's like these weird compartmentalized almost at times, where it feels like certain areas of my life were much more together and other areas were really far apart.
Hmm.
So so definitely, like, there is a desire there amongst the three of us to come together
Unite.
and unite. Yeah, I could definitely. That's interesting to use magic. I mean, I've already used tarot to talk to. I use tarot to talk to them a lot when I don't feel like engaging too hard,
Mm-hmm.
or like being too present with them, because they can make me disassociate, and disassociating kind of sucks, as I'm
Right. Yeah.
sure a lot of us here know. And
Mm.
and I disassociate obviously incredibly hard, apparently. And so sometimes I just don't feel like being in that headspace. Um and I'll just use tarot, and it kind of creates it's like a telephone to my altars, and it's actually really nice. It
Hmm.
actually is really insightful, and yeah, yeah. So that's
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, I hope that you can at least find some measure of peace or acceptance, or like something to walk towards, because I find that's always what's ultimately the most healing for someone,
Yeah, I mean, like, you know what this too though, like, I recognize as well that, like, this is the diagnosis is just more or less new to me. This is what I've uh been being treated for. Um the only way that I found out was because I had to get letter you know proper letterhead, whatever, from my therapist for the Center of Disability at my school.
Mm.
And I was reading through it and looking at my diagnosis, and I
So
was
you were
like,
not
"Oh, well,
aware of
okay.
your actual diagnosis this whole time. Therapy. Did you ever
What happened?"
ask? So like you
No,
weren't aware of what the diagnosis of what the
my first my initial diagnosis, after however many, I think it's after 3 months, I forget,
Mm.
was panic disorder and chronic depression.
Mm.
Um, and then apparently, as I got more comfortable, which I agree with, I started to present. And of course, this is the diagnosis over years
Mm.
now, but I started to present DID,
Mm.
which makes sense. Um,
Well, it does make sense because you had already mentioned like talking to your like inner child kind of thing
and
before,
how
right?
influential they are. Right. I just didn't
Mm.
realize that the amount of how
Sentience
real
of your inner
I
child, I
were.
guess.
Huh?
It's like they're sentient, and you know what I mean. Like
Yeah, I
yeah.
just didn't realize that that's DID for me.
Hmm.
And the way that I change depending upon like my demeanor changes. So that was the thing that always like that's why it was also so weird for me was because I'm like I'm very conscious when I switch. I'm very aware of the people and the things happening around me.
Right.
There's not it's not how I lose time.
Mm-hmm.
I can lose things, like lose parts of time, but mostly under incredible stress or very sort of it's mostly under stress.
Hmm.
That's when I start to lose time or I start to lose
So
moments.
stress is the
Um
trigger, basically, usually is
right.
for
Yeah, as soon as
switch.
something starts to get hard, I
Hmm.
start to sort of lose because that's when they step in. They
Mm.
step in when I can't handle that anymore and they're like, "Well, we'll take over."
Like young
Uh,
Scotty.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You've
That
mentioned
that
that many times.
mhm. And then Scott's different. Scott hears his voice whenever my therapist asks like what's, she asked me, I remember this was a while ago. She asked me what's the teenager's name? And I said it's Scott. And she goes and she looked at me for a minute and I goes and I like cuz I said it like that. I was like Scott. And that's how when I was a teenager my mom used to say my name.
Right. Yeah. Like
Scott.
exacerbated all the time. Like
Mhm.
yeah.
And that's how he hears his
Mm.
name. And that
Hmm.
when asked what his name is, he hears it that way, Scott. And so we like make that distinction when we're talking in therapy between me, Scott, and Scott,
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean it's kind of really interesting actually, like when you think about it. Like I'm not upset by it anymore. Like I said, this is it's been the reality. It's just was the reality of it was I was unaware
Right.
of my
Like you've
diagnosis, you
been
know what I mean?
living with this since, who knows how long,
Right.
and you're like, "Oh, this is what it is. I didn't realize this is what it is."
Right. So I mean, like, I actually like I've come to a nice place with it. I'm just like, even my mom was like, "But you're still progressing." My mom was like, "You're still progressing. You're still doing everything you were doing." You know what I mean? And even like my prognosis is good, and I'm like showing good signs of integration. Actually, to go back to that, Sophie, I am showing signs of integration. Um, so, like, I mean, it's all working out. I just wanted to bring up an interesting topic, which we could talk about more another time. I recognize the time.
Yeah, I mean, we could go a couple minutes over if everyone has a bit of time, because I didn't know if anyone else had anything to weigh in on Scott's initial question of like mental
I
health or.
also do want to say, Rue, I know sometimes these kind of topics can be triggering for you. I hope I didn't
Oh no, you're
upset you at
fine,
all.
darling.
Okay.
Oh no. No, no, no,
I
no,
did.
no.
I
You're
did think about
absolutely
Pocahontas
fine.
after the fact, and I was like, shit. Okay.
No, I appreciate you. No, it's all good.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, if you want to continue, like, feel free to.
I could kind of speak a little bit because it's funny. Like mental health is kind of a thing that I've been trying to conquer as well. Mostly because my sister is actually going to therapy. She's um like OCD basically. That's what she's going to
Mhm.
therapy for, and so she's been calling me a lot about her journey and what she's been doing, and a lot of our conversations are coming, but a lot of our mental issues stem from our childhood and how we were raised and how it was just we were we were good kids because we were terrified to be not good kids. That's the reason
Mhm.
why we were so well
Ugh.
behaved, is because we were terrified to be otherwise. And we've been coming to grips with that. We've been coming to grips with that as adults. And we realize like there's just like my sister has conquered the fear of an anxiety behind driving, just getting in a car and going
Mhm.
wherever you need to go. I can't do that still on my own, and I don't think I ever will. And I also don't like driving, and so, whatever. But like there's just a lot of things that we have similar issues with. And what it really boils down to for both of us is we both feel inadequate in everything. We both feel that even though we know we're putting forth our best efforts, we know that we're good people, like we're always trying to be nice to other people, and we're trying to leave a good mark on the world. And it is always, always, always met with feelings of inadequacy and failure, even when we succeed. Even when we clearly succeed in what we're trying to do, it's still a failure because it could have been better. It could have been perfect. Don't you know it could have been perfect? And so, because it's just no matter what we ever did as kids, like it was, okay, I'm doing this thing. It's like, all right, well, it's not good enough. And so we've carried that into our adult lives, and it's really affected me with my magic. And I really actually have Scott to thank for this one little thing that you kind of said to me. Like, you have to kind of go back to a place when you're a kid and you're playing make believe, you're playing pretend. Because when you're playing pretend, like you're in it, right? Like you believe it. Like we used to play like Animorphs, right? I believed that I could morph into a tiger. Like when we were playing that as kids, and I believed that the dirt and the leaves that I was mixing in the bucket, I believed that was a potion. And it had very real power for me as a kid, and as an adult over time, years, it gets beaten out of you in whatever way that is. Maybe not physically, but like it gets beaten down, it gets beaten out of you. And in the case of me, it happened pretty hard. Like I got beat up by life. And a lot of that is being queer. Being a queer person is tough. Like that moment when you have that realization, you go through that, it's life is just that much harder for you at that point. And like I'm in my 30s now, and I'm just like, I've always had the same goals and visions, but like especially with the podcast business, working for myself, these things that I always talk about, the reason I think a lot of the reason I have not been able to progress the way that I wanted to is because I don't trust myself. Like I have worked on so many things. Like every ritual I write, people say they like. Every event I've put on, people are like, that was great, it went well. Everything that I've worked on in my witchcraft or in the community has succeeded. Nothing has really failed terribly. And I still say to myself that I'm a failure. And so the thing that I have been working on the most is, it sounds so cliche and cheesy, and I hate that it sounds cliche and cheesy, but it's like forgiving myself, like celebrating me, telling myself I did a good job, and telling myself like, no, like you're tired now, you don't have to stay up all night and do this thing, like you're tired. Like I've been sick this whole week, like with some respiratory crap, and
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, it's all good. I'm getting better now, but it sucked. But yeah, so
Kicked his
like,
ass harder than Corona.
yeah, COVID was nothing in comparison to whatever the fuck I had. But I've just been trying to like really, really forgive myself, and not just like in a flippant like, oh, it's okay, or it's that, because like I'll hear that and I'll be like, no, it's not okay. I need to do more. And so I don't know. It's just it's been helping me a lot, because like, for example, I have to write this. I'm doing a hand fasting in early May for a friend, and it's the first one that I'm doing. So of course, it comes with nerves. And I was looking over the notes that we had from our initial conversation and meeting, and it's going to be really fun to do, but also difficult to do, because I have to familiarize myself with some pop culture things that I excuse me, that I know nothing about, like the Shadowhunters series and Klingon culture and stuff about their romance. So they just wanted to like wrap these things into this ritual, like kind of like these themes and stuff. And so I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a lot of research that I'm gonna have to put into this to make it good, to make it what they want. And I realized as I was doing that work, so like, there's like two parts of my brain that's like, it's work, and so it's stressful, and you're supposed to be stressed while you're working. And then
I think that's
there's
some bullshit right there.
yeah, and then there's this other part of my brain that's like, you're working on a ritual. You fucking love writing rituals. Like, why are you like, you love this? You're having fun right now, you idiot. And I think that's the voice that I need to listen to more, is like, yeah, I have fun. Like, I enjoy running a pagan pride meeting. I enjoy that work. I do. I really genuinely do. I do not enjoy the work that I do that gives me a paycheck. Like, I don't enjoy my job. But I enjoy the work of the witch that I am, and the type of witch I am is I'm here for the community. There's not a lot of witches that do that. A lot of witches are very independent, individual kind of focused. I'm different. I'm just wired different. I always want to seek ways to build communities and to bring people together and to foster just any kind of connection, because it's what we have. It's all we have is our connection with each other and our connection with the powers that be. However you connect with that. And it's been helping me. I've been getting a lot accomplished, and I've been feeling better about myself because I've realized the type of witch that I am, and I'm allowing myself to like, I'm forgiving myself for when I feel tired, or I just can't, or I just think it's so much work, or it's this or it's that, or it's not going to be right, it's not going to be good. And I'm like, no, it will be, because you will not allow it to not be good. That's just who you are. It's impossible. And so
Right.
I don't know, just been having more confidence in myself, and it's been
That's
nice.
great. That's a lot of progress for you. I'm very proud of you.
Yeah, glad to hear it.
It is.
Yes. Woo.
Oh my god. So, is there anything else that we kind of wanted to touch on or talk about today? Like minute 11, a little bit over, or just any kind of maybe concluding thoughts. I'm really glad that all four of us were able to get on the recording today, 'cause it's been a while. I've been
I
taking
got
Yeah.
a lot of.
Yes.
I purposely got done so much homework last night, so that way I have a little bit left to do today. So that way
Yeah.
I can record and relax.
I was very happy
Easy.
when you responded. You were like, "Yeah, I can do it," and I was like,
Oh God, I was so happy too, because
Woot, woot,
with all this homework, it is
woot, woot.
nonstop math problems. That's all.
Mm.
It's just math all the
Rough.
time for
all math,
hours
all the
and
time.
hours
Okay.
and
I'm gonna
hours.
make a joke right now. Saint Bimbo, protect us
Oh,
from
hell yeah.
math.
Love it. Damn, I gotta get one of those. I gotta get the Saint Bimbo
Yeah.
candle.
You have to actually buy the Saint Bimbo sticker by the artist who makes it, Art
Mhm.
Attack. They make the votive stickers, and you buy it off of their website. I can send you the link, and I can put the link in the show notes for anybody who
Perfect.
wants to buy their own Bimbo. And then you
Yes.
just buy a pink candle with a votive sleeve, like you would at any candle or occult shop. And then bada bing, bada boom, you got your own personalized Saint Bimbo stickers
Love
or
it.
votives. Yeah.
Love it.
And I just reused the same jar. I do have stuff to say, but it would probably spark a whole nother episode discussion. But I can give you the primer for it if you're interested.
Yeah, let's maybe think about what we might want to talk about next week.
I'm
Yeah, I was gonna
going
say
home to my hometown for Christmas.
Oh.
Oh.
Fear holiday homecoming, baby.
Oh, you know what? That's very thematic. Maybe not for the next
Mhm.
set. Like, when are you going? When do you get, what date are you going
December
back?
7th
The 7th. Okay, so all right,
is
so
when that's when I plan to leave and plan to return around January 7th.
that will be a really interesting topic, like around that
Yeah, because
holiday
there's just
time
no
once
work.
we
There's
have.
no fucking work in December. So I'm gonna do that and then get boob surgery when I come back.
Oh, there you go.
But it's
Hell yeah.
get
Yeah,
the
so
boobies.
we have a Yule retreat coming up with South Street Circle, a group that we practice with. It's coming up in whatever the mid weekend of that is, like the
3 weeks.
Forget the dates. But anyway,
16th to the 18th.
16th to the 18th. My parents have decided that they're going to visit up from
Oh,
Florida
dang.
that exact time frame. So I'm going to be away Friday, Saturday, come home Sunday, but I'm not going to want to fucking see anybody Sunday after being away all weekend. Who wants to
Right.
deal with that? So I did actually, I looked at my PTO. I took off that Monday. And man, it's just gonna be nice because like when they were originally like scheduling it, I was like, well, if I see you, I see you. And my mom wasn't happy about that, so it'll be fun. It'll be fun. And what's really funny, so they've been taking care of my grandfather because he's old, he's got problems, he's starting to go, and so he needs a lot of help, and so they've been taking care of him.
Like an
And
appliance.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of how he
100%.
honestly, it's how he views himself. He views himself like an old car, so like okay.
That works.
And my mom had said to my sister, all I want for Christmas is for you and Jay to come down for a couple days and just take care of grandpa so me and dad can go on a vacation. And I was fucking pissing myself laughing. Like, I swear to God, like, when my sister texted me that, I was like, yo, she got jokes, let me tell you. Like, ain't no amount of money in the world you could pay me to do that. Fuck that. And, like, I know if anyone's listening, I probably sound like a horrible person, but if you knew my family, you'd get it. And that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. That's why I laugh and do not judge.
Yes. But yes, holidays are coming, so it's gonna be spicy. The next
Also, by the way, too, now that I think about it, because I just remembered, I'll have to ask if I could talk about it because it's technically not my story to tell, but I am involved. So I also have my partner's family drama that I'm involved in. That's yeah. So I'll see if I'm allowed to even remotely cover that, but we'll see.
Perfect. Alrighty, well, I think any concluding kind of thoughts today?
I
I have one.
Mm-hmm.
And I speak directly to our listeners. I know that in the occult magical community there is a stigma around having, or there at times is a stigma around having mental illness and practicing magic. But one, I want you to know that some of the greatest practitioners of our time, like recently, also live with mental illness. And you could be an amazing mystic, magician, witch, etc., and still live with complications as you work through them, and you grow in your magic, etc., and all that can at the same time. And that's I promise you that is true. That's my
Use it as a tool. It's your superpower.
let me think. What are my closing statements? Capitalism sucks.
As always.
Damn it, you took
Absolutely.
mine.
Fuck colonialism. And be gay, do crime.
Yeah, all those.
I agree with
Here
everything.
he, here he.
Pretty much the usual.
Alrighty, everybody. We will see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.